gate. You got to keep the animals out. You know, here in Los Angeles, you got to keep it private. Over there, this is essential studio material. You have to have a barbecue. A studio without a barbecue is not a studio. Okay, let's just get that straight. Come on in. Hello, my name is Sean Tallman. I'm an engineer here in Los Angeles. Today we're at the Boom Boom Room recording studio in Burbank. And I'm here to tell you fine people some stuff. Ding. That's what you got to put the little thing right there. Okay. When you come to a professional studio and the level of quality just goes up. I mean, you pay money for the quality, you know. This is all I do every day. You know, I don't, and a lot of people that record at home, they have other jobs or, you know, and this is their hobby or whatnot to record, but this is what I do. So in that sense, I think that at least for my job, I know I bring more of a professionalism working in a place like this. Boom Boom Room's a really cool recording studio. It's actually owned by Will Smith. There's a SSL board. This is pretty much the standard board for mixing hip-hop, R&B records, pop records, even some rock records occasionally. Great thing about the SSL board that it's just got the punch that you need to make the record sound big and full, and a lot of low end. SSL it's more of a precise sounding board, which is the reason a lot of people use it for hip hop. It has a much more punch to the sound. Everything's a little bit more crisp. Whilst the Neve board is an equally good sounding board, but it generally sounds a little bit darker and more round, and the EQs and compressors on it aren't necessarily as precise or punchy. A lot of rock records are cut on Neves, and a lot of country records are cut on Neves, but there are some producers that do use Neves, such as Timberland uses Neves. DJ Quick sometimes, I know that he uses Neve boards, and Dr. Dre, but generally it's more in the rock and country world that Neves are being used. Me and my friends, we started to DJ and stuff when I was probably 14 or 15. And I grew up in Hawaii, so I listened to a lot of reggae and I have a lot of outdoor parties. So my friends and I got a sound system, got all these speakers together, and started throwing parties. And then I got another friend that was in a reggae band to start, coming and playing at the parties on the beach. And one thing led to another, and I got a 4-track cassette recorder. And I asked the guys in the band if I could record them while they're live playing, and that just kind of morphed into me wanting to be an engineer. And then I moved to the Bay Area and worked in some studios for a while, and then I decided I was going to make it my career, and I went to school for it. Biggest records, I worked on the last Outkast record, the Love Below side, worked on Gwen Stefani, her solo album, Usher, his last album as well. I recorded a couple records for him. Let's see, hip hop genre, I've been working on T.I., Trick Daddy, a lot of Trina, all the T's from the South, I think just in presenting it the best way possible through a mix, to take it from the stage of a demo and make it sound like a record, that feeling that everybody associates with listening to good music. That's what a mixer does. The producer has the baby. The producer and the artist have the baby, and I just look after it after it's born. That's what it is. It's the producer is, of course, the most important part, because he gives me guidance, he gives the artist guidance, he's the one that fuses everything together. Sure, I mean, that's why I have to be in a room like this, using a board like this, using the equipment that I use, because not every record I get sounds great coming out off of the Pro Tools. So I mean that's the main reason that I use SSL is it brings consistency to my records. So hopefully in 2 days, if I get two different types of records, one with bad sounds, one with good sounds, I can pretty much make them sound consistently good on the radio. Yeah. Yeah, that all depends on the feeling of the song, and what the producer brings to me. If it's a song with a bunch of 808s in it, I know that it's for the club or for someone's car. Where someone gives me a ballad, an R&B ballad, I'm not gonna mix those records exactly the same. I'm not gonna put a bunch of low end in it because there's probably not gonna be anybody, bump into a slow jam, at 12 o'clock at the club, or in their car. They probably won't be listening to it really loud in the car. So yeah, that definitely has an effect, but it's really it's really not something that's thought out. I don't really necessarily think about it like that. I think about it in terms of what the record needs to be. It really depends on the song. It's my job, like any job that is dealing in artistic field, is everything is subjective. There might be an 808 in an R&B song, but I won't mix it exactly the same way as I do in a club song. So it really depends, and that's where the feeling of working in the studio and the experience comes in, of making those records sound the way they need to sound. Well, I think it had the older records, 50s, 60s, 70s records. I think, or at least into the mid 70s. I think a lot of those records were written by groups that were touring a lot. The average artist these days doesn't tour, and most of their income is generated off of record sales and endorsements. So I think that a lot of times when the group or artist had a chance to come to the studio, the songs had already been worked out. They'd already been refined by playing shows, 300 days a year. So I think that has a lot to do with it, and I also think that so the material they had was generally, something that they knew that their public wanted. And I also think that when they did come to record, there wasn't it wasn't necessarily all about getting the record done as fast as possible and then fixing it later in the mix. Because of the technology, a lot of times the way they recorded the record, all the musicians in one room, that's exactly how the record sounded when it got pressed on vinyl. Whilst now, a record could go through 100 different versions before they finally get to the right version that comes to get mixed. So, and also generally artists write their records, at least in hip hop and R&B, write their records in the studio. So, I've heard amazing records get made right then and there, but I don't necessarily know if that's the right way. It's just the way it is now. It's good. That's what it's all about. That's my gratitude, or that's my gratification. When I go out and see people at a club get excited for a record that I had something to do with, that always makes me feel happy. And it's great. That's my gratification, is to see the look on their face. Especially if it's like a really hot chick and she really loves it. I love to go out. A lot of times I'll find myself sitting in a club and I'll be thinking about records and how the people are reacting to them in a club, and then I'll try to bring that experience here. What was it about that one song that made everybody get up and just go crazy? And not necessarily the song so much as what were the sonics that made everybody go crazy and made everybody feel like that. I've only been working like pro studios for about 7 years, so I'm relatively new to this business. But when I first started working in big professional studios, they were still using 24-track tape. But about a year later, it was all the Pro Tools, Like one second it was 24 track and everybody was using it, and then the next minute was Pro Tools. It wasn't a gradual change. It just, at least in my experience, it just happened like that. I just listen to it and try to make what it is the best it can be. You know, some of my favorite records are sample records. You know, in hip hop. You know, so I'm not so worried about having it separate. That doesn't really bother me so much. I mean, I would love it, because then it would maybe offer me a little bit more creativity as far as the levels, but the producer that made that record chose that sample for a reason, for the way that it sounds, so I'm going to make that sample sound the best it can. Sometimes it's hard to listen to 2 bars looped all day long, you know, so a lot of times I'll take the sample out and just listen to it with the drums and the keyboard, and then at the end of the night I'll put the sample back in there. Because sometimes when you listen to it going over and over and over and over and over, you can really lose your perspective. Sure. I mean, a lot of times when I do get bad sounds, I'll replace them. You know, bad drum sounds, or it's really just drum sounds that I generally change, you know, in somebody else's record. I try my best though to keep what the producer's original vision was for the song, and just kind of improve upon their sounds. But then there's some producers that almost expect you to change their drums, so you know, it just depends. A lot of times you'll get people that made records at their house or made them in a lower budget studio where they didn't really hear how everything really sounded. So you'll get them in here and they'll hear the mix and they'll be like, oh, the bass doesn't sound good, I hate that sound. So we'll put up a keyboard and have them, you know, replay it. The producer will replay the bass, or have a session player come in and play, or, you know, or the keys, or, you know. I prefer to have a record that has the instruments raw, you know, as they're played. You know, sometimes when you're dealing with something like a sample, for instance, it's, you know, especially if it's off an old record, you're not dealing with something that could be as high definition as possible. Yeah, actually I do. A lot of times if I'm mixing a song, I'll come in and I'll work on the vocals first. Because if you listen to a record all day and you listen to it loud, sometimes when you get, you know, traditionally you bring the vocals up last. And I found that if I do my EQ and compression on the vocals before I start really working on the music, my vocal sounds generally sound a lot better, because I do it on fresh ears. You know, a lot of people, the vocal in a song is what they connect to, so I want to make sure that is presented in the right way. It comes back to what you're, you know, refining your craft, listening to what you're doing, you know, taking your music out when you're mixing at the house. Take it to your friends, take it to your car, take it to the club, you know, and keep on refining it and refining it. You know, it's a job, you know, it's something, if you're really serious about it, you have to take the time to do it. A lot of times people record vocals badly at home. They don't set up right. They're generally listening to it on the headphones. The microphones and the mic preamplifiers that they use aren't, you know, necessarily the best. But I would say 90% of the problem with records that people cut at home that they give to me is that their vocals don't sound good. They're distorted. They're not loud enough, or you can hear planes flying over their house, or you can hear the refrigerator turn on. You know, is one thing. You know, a lot of the people that are recording at the house are artists. They're not engineers. You know, so, and I understand as an artist, you get caught up in the moment of trying to get your ideas on tape or trying to put down your creativity, but maybe just take 2 seconds out of your process just to make sure everything's right. Pay attention to your sounds. You know, go and put together all the records you love, and think about how those sounds, how those records sounds from the very basics. How does that kick sound? How does the snare sound? How do those guitars sound? How do the hi-hats sound? And try to find similar sounds out there. I mean, all those sounds are out there. There's no secret. Everybody can get those sounds. You know, it's just about you as a producer picking those sounds. You know, there's a million sample CDs. There's a million things you get off the internet, but you need to have you need to refine your process as far as finding those right sounds. There's no right way to paint your picture. There's no one way, to paint your picture. You know, everybody can use a different brush, a different paint, and that's what it's about. You know, I've heard records that sound great coming just off of Pro Tools, nothing else. But the producer picked the right sounds. He picked good sounds. You know, but I think the process of going through a mixer, you know, spending time in a studio like this, I think it definitely helps. I've learned a lot of amazing and wonderful things, but the best thing I'm at is Pong. Shit. So you need another person. You need another engineer here to play Pong with you. That's essential. Oh, shit. All right.